This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, I'm Rekha Sharma, and I played Landry on Star Trek Discovery. You are listening to The Edge on Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Welcome, listeners, to The Edge, Trek FM's dedicated podcast to Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Amy Nelson. Patrick is going through Vahar'ai and cannot join us this week, but I cannot do this alone. So we have with us Christopher D. Littlefield joining us. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming in at the last moment. I really do appreciate it.
Of course, I'm really happy to be here. This is my third podcast with Trek FM.
I know. You've been on Postcards,
and we did our Masks episode on Earl Grey.
Yep.
Which was a lot of fun.
It was really fun, listeners. If you haven't listened to Earl Grey, do you remember the number on that?
No,
I can't remember either.
I don't know. 20 something.
Yeah,
no,
260 something.
I think, yeah, something like that.
So, yeah, you are just making the rounds and just so glad to have you here on The Edge. First time on The Edge. So,
yeah. And I'm hooked.
Yes, good. Well, we are going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 6, Sound of Thunder. So, I'm assuming you have watched the show, of course.
Yes, I watched it the night of that it dropped, and then when you asked me to join yesterday for today, I watched it again, took my notes, and then this morning, as I was walking my dog, Buckley Tiberius, I listened to most of it, walking around just audio only, which was really fascinating and cool. I got the idea from, I think, Justin Ozer, who said that he does that sometimes.
Oh, wow. That would be interesting. You pick
fun.
up different things.
Yeah, you can hear, I think for me as a musician, I just paid attention a lot more to the score because I didn't have anything visual to look at. So I really appreciated what Jeff Russo does with this series. I noticed in particular, something that really fascinated me was the scoring underneath Saru's opening lines. And it was like a different orchestration and arrangement of the Discovery theme, but with like piano and some keyboard pads and maybe a violin. And it was just gorgeous. It really evoked a lot of the emotions that we're dealing with in this episode.
Yeah, I should try that to get that feel and to, pay more attention to the score because it is amazing. And Jeff Russo does a great, great job with that.
Oh, yeah.
So let's get into the discussion. One of the things that I wanted to talk about as the overall theme that I noticed was transformations. And I just saw it running through in 3 characters specifically, Saru, Culber, and Tyler. So I just wanted to talk with you about Saru first, and then we'll get to Culber and Tyler. But like this episode really is showing this transformation that Saru has gone through and how it's affecting him. We saw that he passed through Vahar'ai, and we see Saru living without this fear ever in the back of his mind and always present. So what did you think about how Saru is making this change to become someone completely different, I think?
I really like it. I think that exploring the Kelpiens' natural evolution is really, really interesting, especially since it was repressed for so long. And it certainly gives the brilliant Doug Jones a lot more to chew on as an actor. But I like that he also honors where he came from too. You know, he says in the beginning, we all come from somewhere. We carry that place with us wherever we go. That never leaves our hearts, not entirely. But none of us can predict where our voyage will lead. And I think that we're really seeing what the potential of Saru is, and his species, of course, too.
So what did you think about his interactions with Captain Pike? I mean, especially on the bridge, it got so confrontational. And we have never seen that before. I mean, from season 1, when Burnham was, you know, trying to take over and, you know, a battle of the binary stars and, you know, how she became the mutineer. He was, you know, more complacent and was following Georgiou and wasn't willing to stand up. But now he's definitely taking a stand for what he believes in and is very, like, emotional and so full of force. I think that it's very different. And I'm like, I don't know. Do you buy it?
I do. I really dig it. And I know that with the last couple episodes after he transitioned and lived through it, a lot of people were thinking, oh, maybe we're going to see Dark Saru, or we're going to see a more aggressive Saru. But I think that those are all growing pains that he's going through. I don't think he's going to all of a sudden become this predator, but I do like that he's standing up for himself more, and he has the courage of his convictions more, which personally I think makes him shows that he's on the road to be a captain or something. I think he's got that in him, and I liked when he stood up to Pike, although it was obviously a really tense moment on the bridge. A lot of the other people on the bridge kind of stood up and thought something was going to happen. And of course, as you mentioned, Burnham even has seen Saru at his worst in season 1, but she kind of stepped in and calmed the moment down. And Saru even stood up to Burnham when he was beaming down to Kaminar after he was removed from the bridge, and she's trying to stop him. She pulls a phaser on him, and he says, "Or what, Michael?" Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really cool power play there. You know, he's on his journey. He's naturally where he is. And I like that it's respected. So
but I worry that he might go too far because, you know, I mean, and we'll talk about it later, but I just feel like if he's got all these emotions, is he going to be able to control them, this anger, this power that he's feeling? It's a very slippery slope that, you know, not everyone is going to be able to control.
Yeah, and Pike voiced those concerns too. He said something like, we're not sure how these biological changes are going to affect you, which is why he didn't want to send him down on the away mission in the first place. Exactly.
So I'm like, Pike is, you know, feeling what I'm feeling, this hesitation of, you know, you're not on solid footing right now because all of these emotions, you're not sure, you know, as the doctor pointed out, these psychological and these nerves and all of this emotions running through you. Like, how are you going to, you haven't had enough time to control these emotions in, I guess, a Starfleet way.
But he did a really good job with, when he first was talking with Siranna, it seemed to me on a rewatch that he was kind of holding back a little bit. He didn't disclose to her what he knew. He didn't disclose to her that he survived the Vahar'ai. You know, I thought he was pretty measured at the beginning until it just got to the point where he had to do something. Mm-hmm. When the Ba'ul transported both of them to their ship.
Yeah.
It's definitely a slippery slope, though, I think. I think it's, you know, there's going to be a learning curve for him.
Yeah. And I think it'll be interesting to see how he, controls and learns how to deal with these new emotions that he's never felt before. Mm-hmm. I loved the interaction between him and Siranna, you could just tell they had this amazing brother and sister relationship. And what really touched me was how hurt she was that he left and that she didn't know. And I loved how she was explaining to Saru, like, the damage that was left in the wake of his leaving.
Yeah. I loved that reunion. I thought it was really touching. And there's so many themes about family in this series, but specifically in this episode. And I like that there's a little bit of sibling rivalry. There's a little bit of animosity, there. Mm-hmm. And Hannah Spear is just an incredible Trek actress to me. I think there are some actors that are new to Trek that they kind of, it takes them a little bit to get their footing and kind of get the universe. But I think she just fits right in. She gets it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm glad you brought her up because she was almost the star of the show. I mean, she acted so well with Doug Jones. The chemistry that they had was spot on. She was able to convey, like I said, the hurt that she felt. And then when she was going through Vahar'ai, like the pain, I could feel it from her. That was very, very moving and touching for me. It's so believable.
Yeah, I really liked her expressions when the obelisks or I'm saying obelisks, but that's for a little bit later in the conversation why I call it that. But when the watchful eyes were activated and Saru and Burnham transport out and she's kind of looking around, her ganglia are going crazy. And I just loved her expression during that. It was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that her, part was really important because we understood a little bit more like what was going on Kaminar, and that they were so worried that the watchful eye was going to take revenge. And so just hypersensitive of retribution that could have happened. It didn't sound like there was any retribution from the Bowel. Did you pick up on any?
I don't think so. I think they were just afraid.
Yeah.
For a while. And, that's kind of what they're there. They sense the coming of fear and danger. So I think they were just scared for a while after Saru took off.
Yeah.
Well, I have a little question about the Vahar'ai. I wonder, does it happen naturally at different ages or is it random? Because they decided to trigger the Vahar'ai for the entire race. But does it happen at a certain point, at a certain age for the Kelpiens?
That it sort of seems like it because when if you look at the short trek and the people that were in for the colon, it looked like different ages. And we know that like his father, was so old, which is rare, Mm-hmm. So I think it is just random, and I don't know what would cause it.
Yeah, I don't either, because from the short trek, from the Brightest Star, I was under the assumption that they were kind of chosen at a certain time, and maybe that's what they believed. The Kelpiens believed, or they're chosen for the culling. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
So do you think that the Bowel somehow activated it and that's how they were chosen, or?
That's possible. I think it's a little unclear.
Yeah. Yeah. It might be just how your body ages, I guess, at certain times. I don't know, like puberty, some people were,
Right. And the other Kelpiens, once they activated it, they reacted a little differently than Saru did on the ship. I didn't see the beads of sweat all over their forehead, and they were kind of screaming. Saru it just seemed like he had a bad case of the flu or something.
Well, and I think that's the difference of it being activated versus the time frame of the body taking it.
But didn't we kind of come to the conclusion that the sphere activated Saru's Vahar'ai? I thought. Well,
it's a theory, but it seemed that definitely in this episode when it was activated, like they didn't, like it seemed like from Saru last episode that he had the cold and it took a couple days, weeks, we don't know how long, but it sort of went through that cycle. Whereas this episode, it was activated. And so they didn't have that time. It was just bam, there you go.
Yeah, maybe it was more forced.
Yeah.
For the rest of the planet.
Yeah. Which,
maybe
how
therefore more
weird
painful.
would that be if you're down on the planet and then everyone's going through it? That would feel like an apocalypse.
Yeah, it's so chaotic. And then everyone all of a sudden has their ganglia, running around with their ganglia in their hands, you know?
Yeah, that would feel like the end of the world. I mean, it would have been. That'd
feel like a major crisis on the planet.
Yeah. I mean, because you know that if you go through Vahar'ai, then you're dead, and then you're not.
Right.
Like the amazement in what Kaminar is going to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that we're going to see any post-Vahar'ai?
Okay, you're going to open up this big thread that I'm going to pull on with that question. So, yes, I think that we are going to see a period of civil unrest on Kaminar. I do. Because Saru doesn't have, the rest of the Kelpiens don't have the same experience with Starfleet as Saru does. So he's seen a lot more. He has a lot more knowledge than the rest of the species. I'm just going to go there. So I'm really convinced after Jeffrey Harlan posted the comparison of the watchful eyes and the obelisk from the TOS episode, The Paradise Syndrome, that the preservers are involved here. I really, really am. And there's a lot of different reasons why. Because the preservers are known to seed other cultures and to take them to other places. And I think that the connection with the Terrelysium in episode, was it episode 2 this season? Mm-hmm. With the humans that were moved before in World War III. I think that they did that. And the technology with the Baul, obviously it looks really similar. Although the watchful eyes are upside down. Mm-hmm. To me, that represents that the Baul had this technology from the preservers, but the upside down thing kind of makes me think that it was a bastardization of that gift to the people of Kaminar to maintain balance or of their technology. Kind of like how in today's society, religious doctrine and dogma is used to justify atrocious acts.
Okay.
Yeah, and a couple more things why I'm going down this, why I'm pulling on this thread, and I told Jeffrey I was going to. So I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I know Justin Ozer isn't quite on board with it yet, but I'm going to just provide a little defense. So when Pike asked the Baul if they were familiar with the Red Angel, they were totally silent.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say anything. They were totally quiet, which is very telling to me. And then Saru also in his quarters talks about the seeds that he collected from Kaminar and used to kind of recreate elements from home. Mm-hmm. So the seeding thing, the preservers are also known as seeders. So I think that could be a connection. And Tyler at towards the end also says that this being, the Red Angel, is manipulating civilizations, manipulating entire civilizations. I really think that we're going to go there. Plus we saw the obelisk on Andor. And I just think the preservers are involved. And I think that after we see the civil unrest on Kaminar, somehow they're going to come back and say, no, you screwed up. You screwed everything up. This isn't what we originally intended.
Okay.
Crazy?
So,
am I crazy?
Well, I hear you. I just have a couple questions. So do you think that the preservers are the Red Angel?
So I have two thoughts about that. My initial thought, of course, we're thinking Iconians a lot. That's going around. That theory is going around. And I think that they may be involved. But because we also heard the Iconians mentioned during Choose Your Pain, they were mentioned on a tactical map on the bridge. And in Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, they were labeled on a star chart in the Ready Room. So initially, I kept thinking the Red Angel were Iconians. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure. I think there's a possibility that it could be a preserver. It could be an Iconian. And then now people are saying it's possibly Michael in the future. So I don't know. I can see the similarity physically with Michael. And when Saru sees the Red Angel, there's almost a moment where it feels like there's a recognition somehow. So it could be. I don't know. I really don't know. So
I'm not quite convinced on any theory. That's because I'm just reserving
I'm not either.
judgment.
I'm just, I'm having a lot of fun pulling at the different possibilities.
Yeah, so a lot of people are going with this Burnham time traveling, and I can see that there probably is a time travel element because this week and last week they have mentioned both some time anomalies associated with the red anomalies. And so there might be some time travel going on with that. But people are saying that the red angel, and they're like, if you freeze frame it, it looks feminine.
It does to me.
Really? It does?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It looks like a feminine figure to me.
Okay. I guess. I don't know. Is it just because of the curvy hips?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So going back to the Red Angel and the Preservers, it seems like, though, that if we look at episode 2, New Eden, that they were taken, are you saying like the Preservers moved them and seated them?
Yes.
After World War III?
Yes, because they were about to be destroyed.
Right. And then, so what part do you see the Preservers coming to Kaminar?
This is what I don't know. I think it has something to do with the imbalance between the Kelpiens and the Baul. And I think maybe they were trying to,
help the Baul not become extinct.
Right. But then the Baul took that technology and ran with it. And thus created another upset to the natural development of that planet.
Oh, and so then if it were the Preservers, then they're coming back as the Red Angel to try and fix their manipulation.
I think so.
Okay.
That's where I'm going with it.
That is a very interesting theory. And so, and in Paradise Syndrome, and
yes.
Sorry, I did not watch it, but is that the one with the Indian?
Yes, it was the Native American culture.
Native American culture, thank you.
That was there. And then the obelisk there.
Right.
I think which communicate, apparently the language is musical notes. And all the symbols that are on the obelisk. And Kirk saying something he says to his communicator about, Kirk to Enterprise was what he said. And that triggered the obelisk to open up. And he fell down into into it. And then there was some type of electrical thing that zapped his brain. So he forgot who he was.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then later on in the episode, they discuss how the Preservers kind of seeded that planet with people from Earth. And that just goes back to Tyler saying that Control is saying that whoever this Red Angel is, they are manipulating entire civilizations.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
that is so interesting. Okay. I'm liking this Preserver. It's the most well thought out argument that I've heard.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey Harlan, too, for bringing that up.
Yeah, I saw that. Where was that on postcards thread?
I think so, but it was
the first time.
There were a ton of comments after you had recorded postcards that just kept going and going and going.
It's like, oh, guys, come on.
I can see how the Red Angel could be Burnham, but I kind of hope it's not. I don't know. And a couple people also commented, oh, maybe it's Zora.
Yes, that was Nick.
Which I anticipate. Yeah, that's right. I anticipate that they will deal with that at some point, but I don't know if now is the time. Mm-hmm. And I do think that the wings that we see behind the Red Angel, I don't think that they're wings. I think that they are some type of technological tether for their transport.
Oh,
when they're going, maybe if it's time travel, maybe it's some type of technological tether that holds them there in place while they're appearing, and then then they zap out of there.
Wow. Wow. So, since we're talking,
we got way off the outline.
I know. So, I just want to talk a moment about the moral implications of what Starfleet did by activating the Vahar'ai for every single Kelpien there. But before, I really liked that they used the information from the sphere from the previous episode to, and I love that diagram. Well, not diagram, but the map of the world. And they had the 3 different colors of the Kelpiens before Vahar'ai, the Kelpiens after, and then the Ba'ul. And then like sort of she drug her finger through and we saw time that it was like, oh, the Ba'ul almost became extinct. And then it seemed like just killed off all the post Vahar'ai Kelpiens. And so we got to see sort of that timeline. And then definitely that is not the balance that obviously Kaminar started with, And so I'm so curious as to like, why wasn't that balance able to stand with the 3 different types of people on the planet? I find that interesting. I don't know.
It's interesting. I mean, Saru talks about the rage that is the kind of basic instinct of post-Vahar'ai Kelpiens. So I think maybe as a society, they weren't evolved enough to deal with that without being predatory.
And how do you think it affected Saru when he found out that his race was the one that was the predator and that were, almost making the Ba'ul extinct? Like, how terrible would that be to find out?
I thought about that because when Pike tells him, oh, you were the predators originally, he's kind of just like, oh, yeah, that's what I figured.
Oh.
He goes, well, then my, he said that makes sense to him. So he kind of just accepted it quickly.
I know, which I don't know if I could just accept that.
I don't know. Maybe it has to do with the combination of his Starfleet experience and knowledge with his own personal evolution. We may see more of that, him dealing with that later.
Yeah.
It seemed like a really quick acceptance to me.
Yeah. So we know that in the past, and so now the tables are turned where now the Ba'ul is the predator and they are the prey before the pre-Vahar'ai Kelpiens, I guess. But is it moral to activate all of the ganglia and to progress them so that they no longer have that fear?
Right. The possibility is that the Kelpiens could now become predators again and eliminate the Ba'ul, right?
Right. And I just don't see. So I thought about this quite a bit because Saru and Siranna are so confident that all the Kelpiens are going to try and work for this peace and equality and to let the Ba'ul live and let them live and this utopia society, which, oh, by the way, I found very interesting when Siranna was talking to Michael and Saru was explaining like, well, we don't have, any money. We don't have any wars. We don't have any hunger. So I love seeing that utopia society not in Federation, just as a side note.
Yeah.
So we know that it is possible, but after the Vahar'ai is started and now they're not, like, they're going to, I feel, have this rage and that they're going to want to execute justice and revenge and hate for the Ba'ul for centuries. I mean, thousands of years of being killed, slaughtered, and oppressed and withheld technology. Like, I can't see that Saru and Siranna are just going to say, well, everyone is going to accept this and work for a united planet.
I think so too. I think that's 2,000 years of oppression.
Yeah.
Because the Ba'ul says that Saru is the first Kelpien to survive the Vahar'ai in 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So I think that's a lot of society to kind of accept, oh no, we're going to let you be who you used to be and who you're supposed to become, but just forget about all the repression for 2,000 years and all the people that died for it. Mm-hmm. I think there are going to be issues. I don't know how long, but I think I think we're going to come back to that.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to, I mean, it just would be natural to want to punish the Baul for what they've done.
There's going to be anger for a long time with a lot of people.
But it wasn't portrayed that way.
Not yet.
Okay.
I don't know. I think we'll see. But I don't know. I feel like, bending General Order 1, but not breaking it, as Pike said, is questionable. And it certainly falls into line more with the original series about how they handled General Order 1 rather than the Prime Directives starting with Picard, when there was much more diplomacy and much more careful behavior in First Contact and dealing with species. But Kaminar also kind of exists in a gray area, right? Because they're aware of all of this technology.
But who is aware? The Baul.
The Kelpiens are, right?
No, they're not.
With all the technology.
They're in awe of the technology, but because Saru's like, they've never seen, first of all, the Baul. They've never seen anyone from another species. They don't know about starships or anything like that.
But don't they know from the Brightest Star that the Baul travel the stars? Am I wrong?
I don't know. I didn't.
It's a little bit of a gray
that
area in the episode because I kind of feel like they're aware of the technology and they're aware that the Baul are more advanced. But are they aware
but I don't think they know that anyone
travel?
else exists. I mean, when Siranna's like, what is that? How do you understand my language? And it's like, well, this has, thousands. And what? There's thousands of people out there or, species? And Saru's like, there's hundreds of thousands. Like, they had no idea of extra life outside of the Baul and themselves.
I agree with that.
So it just, oh man, I didn't think that was bending because I thought to talk to the Baul, that wasn't bending. That wasn't breaking General Order 1. But to go down to the Kelpiens, I felt that was breaking because they have no idea, nor do they have the technology. They see technology, but it's not a possession. It's not theirs. They don't know how to work it,
Yeah, but who knows if they would have had the chance to continue to, if the planet had the chance to continue to evolve along its natural trajectory. Well, I guess the Baul would be gone, first of all. But, I don't know. I was really also surprised that they sent Michael down to the planet. I was like, what? They don't know. They don't know who she is. They don't know what species she is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of murky area with this interaction.
That was the bending, even though I sort of think it was breaking, but
yeah, I think it's pretty close.
Yeah. I just don't know if we will come back to it because it sort of felt all wrapped up at the end a little, tie a little bow on it. Saru invites Siranna to stay and to explore with him just for a little bit and we'll take you back. And she's like, no, I need to be there for the planet, for my people as we transition, And I don't know if we're going to come back and see what happens because we haven't, I don't think we're going to see what happens at New Eden either.
You don't?
Uh-uh.
See, I do.
Okay.
I think that as we're connecting the dots towards the end of the season, we're going to see what they all mean and what happened in all of these places as a result of the Red Angels interference / whatever they're doing. I really think we will. I think they're going to connect the dots again.
Okay, I can see that. Ooh, that would be great. Now I'm more excited.
Yeah, that's just my hunch.
Uh-huh.
Could be wrong. Everything could change once Spock gets in the picture.
Oh my gosh, next week, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh. Okay. One other thing, since we're all just talking about Saru and Baul, the Baul, so just a little nitpick. So when they're in, I don't know, the ready room or whatever, and they're talking about, and they're seeing the planets and Tyler is there and they're saying, well, we have made contact with the Ba'ul. And then Saru corrects them and says, no, I was the one who sent out the signal. So why wouldn't Starfleet's records have been more accurate? They brought Saru, they brought the one who made the communication. So why would Starfleet, and especially Section 31, be believing that the Ba'ul was the one who made the contact? I understand it was the Ba'ul technology, but Saru has been on there for 17 years, I believe it is. Like, they knew that Saru was the one who reached out, so they knew it wasn't the Ba'ul.
Yeah, I think that was a mistake. I think they would have known. Because Giorgio, when she appeared to Saru on Kaminar, when she picked him up, said, I had to go through all this chain of command to make sure it was okay for me to bring you here and contact you. They all would have known for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a couple nitpicks in this episode. That was definitely one of them.
Okay. My other nitpick, since we're here. Okay. So Saru and Siranna were taken by the Ba'ul, and they were unable to locate their signal. Saru messes with the technology and gets a communication back and forth.
The audio, yeah.
Yeah, the audio. They still couldn't transport them out. They still didn't know where they were. But yet, somehow, they were able to send the transmission that begins the Vahar'ai process. And I'm like, look, if you can send a transmission, then you know where that person is, and you should be able to get them out.
I guess so. I mean, it was a frequency or something, right? It said, I think when they were trying to trigger it, it said frequency is, I don't know what it said, something like that.
Yeah, it was a frequency. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it affected Siranna on that ship.
Yeah.
And then everybody else on the planet. I don't know if it necessarily had anything to do with their location. Like maybe the audio, the frequency just kind of can penetrate whatever.
Huh.
I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't think about that one, but it's interesting that they had no idea where they were, but they were still able to communicate and kind of fix everything, even though they're like, we don't know where you are.
Yeah. I mean, because you're getting a transmission, then you know where it's coming from. I don't know.
Yeah.
That just was sort of weird to me. I'm like, well, if they sent him a transmission, then they should be able to get him out because they know where he is now because they follow where the transmission went. Yeah. Anyways.
That one didn't bother me as much as two things. Okay. One of them's been pointed out a lot is that they removed the Shenzhou marking from the shuttlecraft when Giorgio picked up Saru in the archival footage and said she was from the Archimedes. Yeah, I think they just realized, I mean, this was a mistake, obviously. And I think that they realized, well, if Giorgio was a lieutenant, she's not on the Shenzhou yet. She's on the Archimedes. And they just had to fix that, which, you know, it's a mistake, but I'm kind of okay with them fixing it for the storyline. I think in the original series, James Kirk had a different middle initial.
Yes, James R.
Was it R? And Where No Man Has Gone Before?
Uh-huh.
So, you know, it's okay to fix stuff like that.
Yeah, okay, all right.
The other thing I noticed was just an editing thing, and I think a prop malfunction. When the Ba'ul threw Saru up against the wall.
Yeah.
And he gets the handcuffs and the cuff on his neck.
Yeah.
There's a point after the Ba'ul disappears back down into the sludge where Saru is struggling, and if you look on his left wrist, the prop that is the brace is kind of, it looks like it fell apart and it's like open.
Oh.
Before he even breaks out of it.
Oh.
Yeah, check that out.
Gosh, I missed that. And I watched it so many times. So, okay. All right. Okay, so that was a lot, starting with transformations.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about Culber and Tyler, which was like...
I know. So yes,
let's talk about them.
Yes, please. So Hugh Culber.
Yeah.
What the transformation that he is going through. Like, he still has his original memories. Like, he's still... I don't know. He's still himself, but his entire DNA is completely different, right?
Mm-hmm.
because it's from now this spore thing that was from the mycelial network.
Yeah, he has an entirely reconstituted body.
Yeah.
No scars. No sexy scars.
No sexy scars. And I just feel for the guy. I mean, he obviously is going through so much. And I love Wilson Cruz just sitting on the med bed and just trying to process everything. Like, he didn't say one word. It just was the shot. And yet the shot I really liked was distant, because you know that he's going through so much internally and he's pushing everyone else away.
What
I thought
shot?
Like
the
camera.
Oh yeah.
How the camera was a little bit further. It didn't zoom in on him. It was, when, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but it was almost like everyone else is kind of standing over him and around him. Like
yeah,
he was
but
isolated.
The camera was like back, and it was just so, I don't know, it really hit me that here he is going through so much, and he doesn't have the capability to process everything, and I don't think anyone would. I just felt like he was going through so much and yet still keeping everyone at bay, that distance that and I don't think it's intentional. He just can't handle anyone else coming into his life, can't handle anyone touching him. Like both times when Saru and when Stamets touched him, like he flinched,
Yeah, he pulled away a lot.
Yeah.
And it just seems like he's really lost to me.
Yeah.
But I love seeing Wilson Cruz challenged more as an actor and deal with maybe darker situations. Mm-hmm. I think he's really good at it, and I'm glad we get to see that side of him.
I saw on social media that he actually did a lot of reading and research on PTSD.
Oh, wow.
To build that into his character.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. First of all, it broke my heart. Stamets smiling and so happy that his man is back, and it's just like, no, he's not really fully back,
Yeah.
And Stamets says when he's talking about when he got the scar, he said, "Oh, all these things happened to make him become the man he is today." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, he's not the man he had become today.
Yeah.
He's somebody else. I wonder, is he missing, like, does he have a soul? Is he, what's something's going on.
Yeah. And what was that quote? I'm sure you have it, I hope, where Saru was talking to Culber.
I got it.
Okay. Thank you. Because I didn't have my notes in front of me.
Yeah, it was great. He says, let me find it. So Saru says to him, enduring something no one thought possible can be transformative. Perhaps in feeling less like you are more like who you were meant to become.
Man, what an amazing quote. I wrote that down.
Yeah, I love it.
And like personally, like, when things get tough in your life and you're like, what in the heck is going on? Like, maybe this is who I need to become, I don't know. The whole Culber thing just really touched me on a personal level.
Yeah, those three characters that we're bringing up with transformation, I really personalized that a lot in my subsequent rewatches with my own story with my family and my parents, and being from like a really conservative family, and then kind of leaving home and experiencing the world in a different way and having different life experiences. And that can be really difficult. And then you kind of have to find out where you are and who you are again in a new way, which I think all of these characters are doing.
Yeah. And, and we've talked off air that I too, came from a very religious background and raised and all of that. And then, yeah, you sort of have to figure out, well, who am I if I'm not doing those things?
Right. And then you go back home, and you're back in these situations, and it's like, Saru is doing this in Kaminar. He has more knowledge now that questions everything he was taught, and his people, the way that they were taught too, and it's which is again goes back to what he said about at the beginning, that we carry all of that with us wherever we go.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, yeah, it is. You take it and you mold it and you create a new self almost every day, and especially after major life events. You are in a constant state of transforming and evolution.
or in Culber's case, literally a new self.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. This was on postcards, which I really appreciated, and I hadn't thought about, like Stamets' interaction with Culber. Like, he's just, all right, you're back, and let's go back to how things are, and I love you, and, you know, I just feel for the guy, and you can't go back to where you were. I mean, something major has happened.
Yeah, that was really hard to see Paul that way. I had a lot of empathy for him in that situation, because it kind of reminded me of when two people are together, but like your friends know, oh, this is over. This person doesn't look at this guy the same way. You know, I'm not saying that Culmitz is over. I don't think so. And I certainly hope not. But there's a lot to get through there to where it's just not going to be the same for a little while. Yeah.
And Stamets is going to have to change his idea of what their relationship was, because it's completely different now.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to learn. I think he's going to have to learn to be a lot more sensitive and maybe soften a little bit and have a little more empathy and understanding.
Yeah, and almost building from scratch. Because it didn't seem like Hugh was responding at all, even to the memory of becoming a doctor. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I don't see him going back to being a doctor.
You don't think so?
Well, not this season.
What do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen to him?
Gosh, I don't know. I just, from what I see, and a lot of people have said they don't want Culber to go back to being a doctor, because then it sort of undoes all of the trauma that has happened to him.
Yeah, we can't just have a complete, we can't cancel out everything that's happened to him. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I think they even said, I think Wilson Cruz said in an interview that on Twitter, that it's definitely a journey to get him back, and has to deal with what he went through, and it's not an easy road.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm really enjoying what we are seeing, and that we are feeling the gravitas of what has happened to him and their relationship, you know, Culber and Stamets. It's brilliant. It really, really is. And I do want to see more, because it was very short in this episode.
It was short, but it was very impactful.
Yep.
And I like that we're just getting this real raw experience of this couple.
Yeah.
You know?
So lastly, Ash Tyler.
Yes.
I wasn't planning on including him, except that very last line with him and Pike, you know, in the cafeteria or whatever it's called. And he's like, Tyler is like, you know, some people have been damaged more because of the Klingon War than what you imagine. And just him standing up and walking away, I was like, oh my gosh. So here we have Ash Tyler, who was Vogue, went through this major transformation that we saw, you know, last season and continuing through this season. And now he's with Section 31 all of a sudden. And like his changes, I mean, he is all over the place. Like he is all over.
Yeah. He's kind of not right in some ways.
I know.
But he's so sexy, and he looks great on screen.
Yeah. But I wonder, because he still has Vogue within him. And so all of his comments of, well, we need to treat the Red Angel, you know, differently. We need to
as a possible threat, right?
Yes, threat analysis and, you know, all of these, you know, negative connotations, assuming the worst. And I don't know if that's because of Section 31. I sort of feel like that's in his wokeness, you know?
Interesting. I think it's probably a little bit of both. And he's obviously a little paranoid. And so is Section 31.
Yeah.
You know, he's changing a lot. I think it's really funny that Tyler brings up the violation of General Order 1. I'm like, dude, you're Section 31. What are you talking about?
I know, right? Yeah.
Do you think that his talking in talking to Pike about some of us are still torn apart from the war, that was kind of a knock at Pike because the Enterprise wasn't around?
Ooh, that could be. I've been seeing a lot of people comment like between the Tyler and Pike animosity that's going on between there. And I guess I don't see it as much as other people. Like you were saying that. I was like, I wouldn't even picked up on that, but I could see it because they definitely don't like each other.
Oh yeah. Pike has taken a lot of shots at him.
Yeah.
And I think it's great for the character development, but I think it also might play an important role in the upcoming Section 31 series with regards to Section 31's relationship with the rest of Starfleet.
Yeah.
You know?
Because we're definitely getting these two different sides on how to tackle a problem. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love that we're looking at multiple ways to deal with it, you know. Yeah, well, we're just going to go knock and say hello. And no, we need to treat them as a threat, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right. And then just a total random thought that I had. I loved when Siranna was inspecting Burnham's hand.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, so different and yet, and then didn't even finish because we knew exactly what she was saying. And I just like, oh man, can't we just view everyone like this, that we're different, but yet so the same. We are the same.
It was so beautiful. And I noticed that there was a lot of hand holding in this episode too.
Oh, yeah.
I think Michael and Saru held hands at one point. Siranna and Saru, there was a lot of holding each other's hands. Mm-hmm. So it just made me think, oh gosh, this theme of connection is so important between Saru and Burnham, between Saru and Siranna, between Culber and Stamets.
Chris, what are your final thoughts for The Sound of Thunder?
I really loved this episode a lot. This has been a great second season so far. And for some reason, this episode feels, since we're kind of almost at the halfway point, it feels like we're starting to get a lot of things tied in together. And I just thought, when you dig deep at the themes in this episode about hope, creating a new balance, creating a new beginning, it really meant a lot to me. I really enjoyed this episode a lot. I loved the quote at the end that Burnham and Saru, when they're talking about Aeschylus, he who learns must suffer, and even in our sleep, pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon our heart. And there's actually more to the quote that they didn't say. I'll go on. And in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom to us by the awful grace of God. I just thought it was such a great summary of all of the things that we have to go through to get to who we are meant to become.
Yeah. And it is sort of so Star Trek ideas of, you know, becoming better and who are we, and, you know, dealing with what's happened in the past and hoping for a better future. And I think we definitely see that in this episode, especially with the planet Kaminar. Like, we want them to be living in peace and having the two species live together and, you know, get this new balance, like you were saying, like what's going to be an appropriate balance where one is not oppressed over the other. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when I first watched this, I was just like, I don't know what was wrong with me, because after watching it multiple times and then, you know, coming up with these amazing themes that are just screaming at me, I was like, man, this is a very, very good episode. Very Star Trek. I love that we are getting these themes throughout the entire season and that everything is connected. I feel like it's much more connected than it was in season 1, which I find interesting. So I love what Discovery is doing with the writers and how these themes are showing up in different characters, like we discussed, this transformation that we see in Saru, Culber, and Tyler, and how it's continuing on, and that we get to see it. We're discovering who Burnham is and what's happened in her past and who she is. So I really, really do enjoy this episode a lot.
Yeah, the themes of connection are so great. And I like that we knew that we were going to get into a place where we're talking about religion and spirituality and science together, but I don't feel they're beating us over the head with it. I feel like it's woven pretty subtly. Aside from New Eden, it's woven pretty subtly throughout the writing.
Yes.
We cannot end the podcast without talking about the Bowel just briefly.
Okay.
So what did you think of our first visit with the Bowel?
Oh, you mean Armis from TNG?
Armis, yes. No relation.
Oh my gosh. That whole scene and the scary voice. Like I said this on postcards, I was scared. Like it was horror movie. The whole genre of the episode just switched so quickly, and the scare and the fear and of the unknown. But then what they were showing, this black tar monster that was much more prickly and spiny and skeletal than Armis. Armis was just a big glob, and so, to see the really long fingers and the hair or whatever, dreadlocks or whatever that was coming over, covering the face, and then the red eyes, instantly took you to the obelisk, the red that they had in the obelisk. That And so you knew that those things were connected. And so then that fear of them harvesting the Kelpiens, like it just all wrapped up. And it was very, very scary for me.
Yeah. Going back to the sound and the voices, Brandy had brought up the sound design of this episode, which I thought was really fantastic. Just the way that they manipulated the voice and everything. And funny you bring up the physicality of the Bowel, because I wanted to find out who was that. So I checked out to see who the actor was, and his name is Javier Botet. And he was, and this is just a fun fact, he was diagnosed with Marfan syndrome when he was 5 years old, which means that certain body tissues have a hyperlaxity brought about by the condition that gives him extremely long and fine fingers, along with a tall, thin build. So he's actually 6.6 feet tall, and he weighs 123 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's such a cool... They picked an actor that was kind of similar in stature to Doug Jones, tall and thin, to play this other species. I thought that was really cool.
Wow. I just thought it was CGI myself. No. Wow. That is very interesting. And I did notice that everyone on Kaminar seems to be tall, slender build.
Yeah. Well, there was the young female one that Siranna talks to at the end, but maybe that's maybe it's because she's younger. She's a little shorter, but yeah, they're all kind of lanky.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I look at the population here on Earth, and we are all different shapes and sizes. That's for sure.
But I do love the subtle differences in the makeup and the texturing and the freckles and all of that. Yeah. It's really cool that they don't make them look exactly the same.
Yeah. She was so beautiful. And I noticed her shoes were very similar. And I was like, and then they were walking on the sand and the beach. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would have been terrible. Because, walking in heels, ladies, men, if you know, walking in heels is terrible. And then on the beach, it's
I've
terrible.
Yeah, those Saruts are something else. I loved hers.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Well, it's been fun talking about the sound of thunder today, but it isn't the only thing we've been discussing on the network. So here's a quick look at some of the other things you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Warp 5.
Well, and I feel like a side quest could be finding more spheres and gathering intelligence from each one. And each one has like a different way you have to get into them and a different thing you have to collect.
Right, or they're cloaked differently, or
each one one is individual.
Earl Grey.
Because, like, the DNA transformation, where's the DNA coming from that's being transformed? You know,
It's like a replicator.
Yeah, and I think that, again,
No.
yeah, but I mean, again, the explanation that it's an advanced Genesis device kind of makes me buy it more.
Okay, yeah.
But it just felt a little weird, the DNA thing. It looks like hey, can somebody just throw some leaves on the bridge, you know? But, you know, I think it's a really cool concept. The snakes in the
torpedo.
Was it the torpedo? At that moment, I thought this is the Halloween 3 of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
To the journey!
That's a really good point, Suzanne. We need to clarify, because when we're talking about Chakotay and Seven, some of the best romantic scenes are not actually with Chakotay, they're with hologram Chakotay.
Yes. I would like to meet hologram Chakotay. He seems nice.
You want a date with holographic Chakotay, okay.
If I had a holodeck, you know I'd be programming that in right now.
The Edge, a Star Trek Discovery podcast.
Saru finally realizes at some point he's seeing its language in ultraviolet light. Basically Morse code. I don't know why they don't say that wording.
Oh, you thought Morse code? Because I was thinking binary.
That makes sense too, but isn't binary like kind of a version of Morse code? Because Morse code is a type of binary language. Because all it is beeps and not beeps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review.
Now, Chris, I'm not sure if you are aware, and I hope everyone is still listening, but we have an iTunes review drawing. So if you leave us a written review and a rating on the iTunes app, then your name will be entered in for our Captain Pike pin from Fansets. And this is going on the entire season 2. So at the end of season 2, we will have a drawing. And just to let you know, listeners, we already have 5 entries. So go ahead and give us a written review and a star rating, and we'll get your name into this drawing. Captain Pike pin. Does that sound great? I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I have one. I wear them all the time. It's awesome. Well, if you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps. And you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link.
And after all of our listeners have passed the Vahar'ai, we'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join in the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select The Edge. That will come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. So, Amy, where can people find you when you're not inspecting alien hands for differences?
Well, when I'm not doing that, you can find me here on the network on Earl Grey, which talks about Star Trek: The Next Generation. You can find me on the Fandom Podcast Network. I do a show called Discoville that talks about Discovery and the Orville. Chris, are you watching the Orville?
I am watching the Orville. I think I'm an episode behind, but I'm liking the second season a lot.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm liking it too.
I want more Trek cameos.
Yes, I know. That's what's so great about it.
Yeah.
And you can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, but my favorite place is there on the Babel Conference. So, Chris, where can people reach you when you're not looking back 2,000 years of history?
Well, I am doing that all the time, but I am on Instagram and Twitter at CD Littlefield, and I'm also in the Babel Conference a lot.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's Patreon.com/TrekFM. patreon.com/trekfm to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more available through our special patrons website, the Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/trekfm.
And I have to tell our listeners also, if you're not a patron yet, you should really totally do it. I started a few months ago, and it was really amazing to get access to additional content and get some of the podcasts early. So it's really worth it. We'd also like to thank our associate producers, Norman C. Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Shoab Mirza, Richard Rutledge, James Muldrow, Cornelia Reutner, Ryan Maillet, Chris Trabuzio, Brian Maloche. Thank you for supporting Trek FM and The Edge.
Chris, thank you again for coming on The Edge. It was so much fun having you.
It was a blast. Thank you. I'm really glad it worked out.
Yes. And thank you for listening, and join us next time to see what's happening on the edge of Federation space.